Hey guys, in this tutorial we're going to create this model together, so let's dive in. Okay, I see two parts of a circle here, so let's create them first. I go to left view and I create a circle. I enable the adaptive and I convert that to spline. I go to spline and I give it an outline. Of course, the amount is visual and I think this is good. Okay, perfect. I hit 2 and I delete the spare parts. Now I right click and I hit on connect and I connect these two pairs of vertices together just like that. Now for the other part I can hold shift and move my model a bit left. I hit OK and now I can hit on mirror. I make it copy and OK. Now I hit S and I align them from left. Now I should attach them together, so I come to geometry and I hit attach and I click on this model. Now I should use subtract, so I come to a spline, I select this model, I come down to boolean, I select subtract and I click on this model. And now I can delete this spare part. Now I have this part and I can align this to my previous model from left. Perfect. For the next part, we need two rectangles for the bottom part and the back part. So I go to top view and I hit Ctrl, right click, and I select the rectangle. And now I can roughly create a rectangle, something like this. And in the perspective view, we can see that it's good enough. Now I move it upwards a bit, just like that. And it needs bits of rotation, so I rotate it, just like that. Now I need another rectangle, which angle is perpendicular to my first one. So I hit A and I rotate my first model until 90 degrees. Now I move my model at the back of my first rectangle using snap, and now I should decrease its height a bit, so I come to modify and at the parameters I decrease the length a bit. Now using snap I reposition it and it seems okay to me now. Now, of course, they need extrude, so I select them both and I come to modifier list, I hit EX, extrude, and I increase the amount of it. I think that's okay. Now I think I can move it a bit, just like that, and now it's okay. Very nice. Now these two models need extrude too, so I select them both and I click on extrude, and I think I should increase the amount of it just like that, and that's okay. Now using snap I position it at the left side of my rectangles. Perfect. They need chamfer, so I come to my for list, I hit CH chamfer, I decrease the amounts and I increase the segments. I hit F4 to see the details. Now I increase the amounts a little bit, just like that. That's okay. Now I come down to smoothing output. I select smooth chamfers only and I activate smooth to adjacent too. Now I select them both and I make them a group. Now holding shift, I move them to the right and I select instance and OK. Now I have to align it to the right part of my model, so this time I use align. I hit Alt plus A, I activate X position and min to max and OK. Now let's check our model. I think the back part is more laid down that we've modeled, so I select that and I rotate it a bit. I check it in the left view. I think I have to move it just like that. Okay. Now I have to edit the bottom part, so I select it. I select the rectangle in the modify panel. I click on modifier list and I type in ed for edit spline. Now I can select its vertices and using snap I can position them at the bottom part of my second rectangle, just like that. Oh, there's a problem here. I used 3D snap and I should have used 2.5D, so using snap I reposition it. And that's okay. So I check my model from left view. Okay, and from top view, I think that's okay. Perfect. I close vertices and I hit PNZ to have an overview of my model, which is okay. Now we're gonna model the pillows, and considering that their angles are the same with the wood parts, so I can make a copy of my wood parts. I hit Ctrl V and I click on copy and OK, and I move them a bit. Okay, I select them all and I hit Alt Q to see them individually, and I see them from left view. I select this rectangle and move it here, and I decrease its length a bit, just like that. Now I have to increase its extrude amount, so I do that. I have to make it negative, and I think that's okay. Now I have to move it backwards and reposition it. That's okay. Now I increase this model's extrude amount. That's okay, and I reposition it. For the extra part, I go to Edit Spline, I select vertices, I select two of those, and I move them backwards. That's okay. Now I recheck my model, and I think that's okay. Now we have to make the pillows look like pillows. How to do that? If you're thinking that we can give them a Turbosmooth modifier, you're wrong, because let's see my model in Clay View and Turbosmooth. As you can see, my model is turned to a squeezed sphere, and that's not what we want, so I delete the Turbosmooth. If you take a closer look to our reference, you can see that the pillow has its edges, and at the same time, it's almost blown up. So I can give it a chamfer modifier first for the edges. I press F4, I don't know the segments, so I make them 0, and now I can give my model a Turbosmooth modifier. I increase the iteration to 3, I check isoline display, and I hit F4. That's not bad, but I think that I need more sharp edges, so I go back to chamfer and I change the amount to 0.1. That's good. Now it's time to make it a bit blown up. So what should I do? I can give it an edit poly after the chamfer. I turn off Turbosmooth. Now I can go to edges and select these edges and connect them together. Okay, I click on connect and I increase the segments to something like 3. Now I can turn on Turbosmooth to see the result, and now I can move my segments. So for having an exaggerated blown up, I can give it a pinch to move them around, just like that. So I go to vertices and I select these vertices and these ones as well, and I move them upwards a bit, and I can activate Turbosmooth to see the results. A bit more. Perfect. Now I deactivate Turbosmooth and I select these vertices and I move them upwards, just like that. And now I can select them all and move them downwards a bit. That's perfect. Now, I need the blown up effect in front view, so I go back to editable poly and I select edges and I select these edges. Perfect, and I should give them a connect too. I simply click on connect and I select these vertices. Holding Ctrl, I add these vertices to my selection. Nice, and now I can move them to the front. The bottom part is good, so I deselect them and I continue moving the rest of them. Now I deselect these vertices, and as you can see, I should move these ones backwards a bit. So I do that. And by trial and error, I continue moving my vertices, as you can see. Perfect. I close the edit poly and I see the result, which is, I think, good. We can see the blown up effect in 2 directions. And now I have to apply this effect to the 3rd direction. Now, considering that my model is symmetrical in this direction, I can use symmetry modifier. So I go to edit poly and I go to edges and I select these edges. So I say nothing and I just move my vertices. You can see the process. It's symmetry turn, so I give it a symmetry before Turbosmooth, and now I select the x-axis and I click on flip. Now I can see my model again. I think that's good, and I can move this part downwards a bit. That's good. These two models need chamfer, so I can select this model and I can drag its chamfer to my model. Now holding Ctrl, I can drag this model's chamfer to another to make them instance. Now as you can see, if I change the chamfer amount of one of them, the other ones will change consequently. Now I could decrease its chamfer to have only its highlights in the render. I think that's good. Okay, the same should happen for another pillow, but a bit less. As you can see, its inflation is not that much. So for this one, we can use another approach, something like insets. So I give it an editable poly before chamfer. I hit 4, I come down to insert and I give it an inset just right here. Now I hit Alt Q to make it isolated. And I turn on Turbosmooth. And as you can see, I can move the polygon out. Now its shape is more like a pillow. Now by turning on and off the shown result, I continue moving to get my preferred result. Okay, I think that's enough for this part, so I close isolate mode. This part needs to go back a bit, so I go to vertices, I select these two ones and I move them backwards a bit. That's perfect. And for the cylinder pillow, we need cloth modifier. So I come to create, I click on cylinder and I activate auto grid. And I create a cylinder as you can see here. Now I move it to the center of my model and now I can increase its segments. I think that's enough, and now I can increase the sides until the grid pattern is not stretched anymore. I hit Alt Q and I give it some cap segments too. Now I close Alt Q and I go to the left view, and now I should move it outside of another models. Good. I select them all and I make a copy somewhere else. Copy and OK. Alt Q. I attach everything together except for the pillow. Now I select them all and I rotate them a bit. Now I go to my file list, CL, cloth modifier, and object properties. The cylinder becomes a cloth and the rectangle is going to be a collision object. And I set the inner pressure of my cylinder to something like 20. Okay, I click on simulate. Everything looks perfect, but I have no crease on my pillow. What should I do? Maybe I could increase the gravity, so I erase simulation and I come down to gravity and I make it -2000. Perfect, I come up and simulate. Now I think that's perfect. It has its crease and it's got the shape of its beneath pillow. Now I give it a Turbosmooth with iteration of 2. I close isolate mode and I delete the spare parts. And if you remember, I rotated the model before, so I right click on rotate and I make this angle to -180. Now I go to left view and I reposition my new pillow to its original place, just like that. Perfect, PZ and F3. I check my model and as you can see my pillow is a bit in the air, so I move it downwards a bit. And that's perfect. Very nice. Our model is ready and thanks for watching. Good luck.